And we're live on YouTube. Welcome everyone to another NPM RFC call. Today's date is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. If you haven't already, feel free to add yourself to the attendees list in the meeting notes doc. That's the HackMD doc, which everyone should have shared access to, whether you're logged in or not. I've just copied and pasted it, spammed it in the chat as usual. And Fritzy, yes, that is not a bug. Is just me spamming chat as usual. We will be following along in the agenda that was posted in issue number 470. It's a very small meeting agenda today. There are only a few items, so we'll have lots of time at the end of these to bring up any other topics that folks want to speak to. Just a quick reminder that these calls and all comms on the RFC's repo and all CLI repos are covered under code of conduct. We ask folks to please be kind and thoughtful, especially as others are speaking. Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. And just to be mindful of the fact that these calls are recorded, they are live. Yeah, I appreciate everybody just being polite. I want to give some time, space for any announcements that folks might have. If you have, feel free to bring them up now. If there's nothing right now, we can move into the agenda portion of the call, starting with the RFC number 466. So this is presented or created by Jordan. This is the NPM publish if needed.
I commented on this one. My understanding of the discussion from last week was that the RFC was approved and someone just needed to do the work. And so I think it can be removed from the agenda unless there's a remaining objection.
I don't think so. Did we want to put it into an RFC, or we just said, let's just do this?
I think we said, let's just do this.
Yeah.
It was significantly less controversial than I think you expected. So
exactly.
Not really much to discuss.
I'll remove the label then. And we'll follow up on our end to actually get started on that work. Moving on then to number 463. This is the multiple app monorepo support. Mystery command is, are you on here, Matt?
Me, yeah. Hi.
Do you want to introduce yourself as well and say hi to the group as well as the folks that are probably watching?
Sure. My name is Matt Hayes. I am in Chicago, Illinois. I'm Mystery Command on GitHub. It's my first time at an NPM Open RFC meeting. I'm not sure how controversial to expect this RFC to be, but it covers a use case that a couple of colleagues and I have run into, specifically in our case with building monorepos that contain multiple lambdas that share code between them. I think the kind of ideal case that we came up with was that each Lambda package or workspace in the monorepo would be able to, basically npm install or npm CI its dependencies, and then we could zip that folder up and, S3 it off to AWS. The issue is with in monorepo dependencies, that npm install fails when you try to run it from the package unless the shared dependency is also published. The problem with publishing it is just that it seems like a bunch of sort of extra work and some kind of weird CI cases where, for example, a change that affects both a shared dependency and one Lambda requires that Lambda to use the new version of the package, which means if we want to put it into a staging environment, we have to like publish pre-release versions of both of those things and make sure that everything is happening in the right order. There's like a lot of orchestration where really it's just like right there. I would just want to use it. I just want to essentially call npm pack on the shared library and then give the result of that calling pack to the Lambda, the app. So that it can have its kind of like local dependencies at the app level. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Looks like there's several questions.
Yeah, I think Jordan was first, and then Isaac has comments.
This sounds like a subset of the thing I've talked about many times about workspaces, which is that the ideal way I think workspaces should work is that there is a node modules folder next to each package JSON, that it only contains the dependency graph that is relevant for that package JSON, and that things that need to be shared, which are, peer dependencies, other sibling workspace packages, and so on, are shared through a mechanism that is not hoisting to the root node modules. And I haven't thought about it in depth as it relates to Matt's RFC, but my first blush or whatever, like it seems like that would completely solve this use case, as well as many others.
Isaac, did you want to follow up on that, or Matt, did you want to?
Yeah, I think I agree with Jordan. But also just to kind of clarify, the use case here is I want to do like I want some kind of a command that'll create a packed tarball of a workspace that has all of that workspace's dependencies included within it. Right. So within that, one way you could imagine that workspace declares all of its dependencies and let's say adds all of them to bundled dependencies. And so that even if it's a symlink, packing it will include those things inside of that tarball. That doesn't work today because there's nothing in its node modules folder, right? Everything has been hoisted up to the top level. If it was this kind of future world where anything that's not a peer dep and not a sort of a sibling workspace would be placed inside of its node modules folder, and anything that is a peer dep or is a sibling workspace would be linked in some way so that all the workspaces use the same one. Then npm pack could just work like it does today. We wouldn't actually need to make any changes there. It would just follow the folder structure. Am I getting the like the use case here more or less accurate?
Yeah, I think so. The sort of like gotcha that occurs to me while you were kind of redescribing it is that we want to call, so like Lambda A depends on package B. We want to call pack on package B and not just copy the folder structure over, if that makes sense. It's like the build script that we have in the apps or in the lambdas that we're building, does npm install -- only prod, and then we do we actually, because we're using TypeScript, we actually have a bunch of like aliases to make it hop around and sort of like bundle the lambda, which seems also kind of unnecessary. But there should be like a way to specify a pre-serve step in between, building the dependency graph. Does that make sense?
So your Lambda has a dependency on one of the packages within that is defined as a workspace, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be, again, if I'm not the way it works today, but hypothetically, that could be linked into Lambda /a /node modules /b would be a symlink to packages /b. And then when you run npm pack, because it's a dependency on a peer, it's a dependency on a sibling workspace. from the point of view of NPM. Then when I run npm pack on my Lambda project, like npm pack-w lambda/a, it would just pull in all of its bundled dependencies normally, and you'd have a tarball that has all of Lambda A's code and all of its node modules just as regular files.
With any of the shared ones like reified inside that tarball.
Yeah, but
Like,
could package B also be packed in as part of that process? So that if like,
Sure, yeah,
if
you
like
could,
when I call npm pack on lambda A and package B is a folder full of TypeScript files, that there's some, pack script or pre-pack script or whatever specified that actually builds it, that it would honor like an npm ignore file in that package, so that would include the source and stuff like that.
yeah, so that's another thing that we definitely need to I feel like we did something, Gar, didn't we do something with npm pack list or something that would like respect ignore files in symlink deps? Did we never finish that?
I remember that. I thought we finished it. Let me go look.
Okay, it's possible I just figured out how to do it and told you and then then didn't follow up. But yeah, so that I definitely remember us pairing on that. So that should be something. You basically, what I'm saying is you can do that with the prepare script, but you would have to run the prepare script within the packages/b first. It's not going to do that automatically when you run npm pack lambda/a. Now you could have a prepare script in lambda/a that does exactly that. That CDs into the packages B folder and runs npm prepare so that everything is, built and ready to go and the ignore files are all set up properly.
So what I'm hearing, if you don't mind me cutting in, is two RFCs to solve one use case, right? Which like kind of both are needed to make it super ergonomic. And the alternative workspaces layout is to me the big one. And then the ergonomics of like, for any depths that are shared, maybe do the extra step of reaching in and running their prepare script automatically without requiring because that way you don't have to hard code which of your depths are internal, because you presumably want that for anything that's symlinked in. And so it seems like with the combination of those two things, Matt's use case would be solved, as would many of my own. Okay,
so Gar reports that we did make the change to npm pack list, but we did not pull it into npm CLI yet. So that's going to go out soon. Basically, what that does is it will respect the ignore files within linked depths that get reified into linked bundle dependencies that get reified into the packaged tarball. A subsequent thing to run prepare scripts of symlinked bundle depths when running npm pack. Yeah, that seems like a decent RFC. It's a little bit trickier than just respecting the ignore files, because npm pack list has no concept of running lifecycle scripts. That's all kind of done outside of it. npm pack list is just determining which files we include and which ones we don't. So yeah, so I think we could do that. That does seem like another RFC, but it shouldn't be workspace specific. It should just be, you have a bundle dependency, which is a symlink. It has a prepare script. We're going to run that prepare script. Right.
Well,
and then,
you're saying bundled dependency, right? I would assume it would apply with any kind of any category of dependency that is symlinked. You would want to automatically reach in and prepare it.
Well, why? I mean, it doesn't.
Because if it's symlinked, it's probably local, which means that, well, it has to be local, which means that it's not coming from a registry, which means that the registry preparation steps probably haven't been run as necessary, as recently as needed.
Right, but when we're running npm pack, if we're not including those files, then why would we care whether they've been prepared or not?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So if it's a dependency
Yeah.
that's symlinked, but it's not a bundle depth, like
I see.
we just skip it.
Okay.
We don't need it anyway.
So then for Matt's use case, you're suggesting that Lambda A add Lambda B as a bundled dependency and a regular one. The workspace stuff would symlink it, and then npm packs change would cause it to automatically be prepared because it's bundled and symlinked.
Correct.
Okay.
The real trick here though is getting that kind of like shared, what is shared, what is linked, what is isolated, ironed out. And moving the reification so that we're putting those things under the workspace / node modules rather than in the root node modules.
Yeah. And Matt, it seems like the extra wrinkle for you is that for Lambda, you need to pack up node modules, but that's not what npm pack does. And so like for a Lambda use case, you almost need to like bundle dependency everything that's a prod dep.
Yeah, but there's another problem with that too, because like the fact that it's, well, I mean, I guess if adding everything that's in dependencies to bundled dependencies and then calling npm pack will create the same like local node modules structure, then I guess that would work. Right now, what we're doing is calling npm install -- only prod, like seeding into the Lambda and then calling that, and then doing a bunch of tedious, ugly stuff to get the local stuff working in there.
Maybe I'll
Yeah,
use prune instead of install to like, so you don't have to redo it. But yeah, I agree with Isaac's comment. NPM should do tedious stuff for
that
you.
sounds real ick. You shouldn't have to be doing that. Like that sounds like something that should be solved by the CLI.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear.
It's actually worse than that. Not only should npm do tedious, ugly package stuff for you, if you start doing tedious, ugly package stuff yourself, there's a good chance npm will start doing it differently someday and like make you have a bad time. So the route you're going of coming here and complaining is absolutely what we prefer people to do.
So the other thing that we tried was, doing npm install, while cd'd into the Lambda to produce a package lock and then running npm shrink wrap, because that seems like the sort of recommended lock file to ship with your deployable whatever, and then running npm CI from inside the Lambda, which got us some of the way there too, but then we still ran into the problem where if a local dependency is specified in the dependencies, somewhere along the way, it's going to try to reach out to a registry to resolve it. And
right. So that would work if you declare that local dependency as a symlink. Like, so instead of dependencies A, or dependencies B : star or whatever, it'd be dependencies B : file : .. /B. And you list it as a bundle dependency, then running npm install and then npm pack would bundle the contents of that folder. It wouldn't run the prepare script for you yet, as we're talking about. And there isn't kind of this nice handling of it within workspaces because B is going to be linked up at the top level rather than directly into the thing that depends on it. So there are two changes that we would need to make to really get rid of this problem for you. But that could be kind of a workaround, I guess, in the short term. I will write it out here.
Yeah, I think I follow you. So the combination of like the file reference in dependencies and then the local package specified in bundle dependencies, as long as I have something to call the prepare script on the local package like library or whatever, that might work.
Yep.
Okay.
So Are people generally also on board with the alternative workspace layout? This keeps coming up, and I haven't had time to write it, but I want to make sure like that would be a good solution.
I think that is a good approach. It's a little bit less. It's a little bit like the isolated mode, but without going all the way there, right?
Well, it overlaps somewhat with the isolation mode in the sense that there are depths that are shared that aren't, via not hoisting, but it doesn't go all the way there. Correct. It limits itself to the completely non-controversial and almost universally expected things that are shared.
Right. Well, and in a way, it almost does it has the opposite impact in terms of disk usage, right? Because instead of where isolated modes, like one of the design goals is reduce disk usage as much as possible. This would be like, no, use all the disk.
Well, it would be avoiding extra disk usage from anything that's shared, because it would only be on the disk once instead of more than once. But it allows for more disk usage, just like isolation mode and default mode of npm do when the versions are different. But it doesn't seek to minimize disk usage on the non-shared dependencies.
Well, right, but if you had two workspaces that each depended on Lodash, let's say, even the same version of Lodash, it's not a top level dep.
That's right.
There would be two copies because there'd be one in each inside of each.
Yeah, and if that ended up being something people wanted to fix in a way that also didn't go all the way to isolation mode, we could probably add some sort of in-between step later, but I don't anticipate that being a big issue. I have hundreds of fully installed node modules on my disks,
it's fine.
Hundreds and hundreds, and it's a couple gigabytes. It's just not that big a problem.
The other way to go about that could be just make it a top level depth, but we're getting pretty far off topic here. So
cool.
Probably
thanks.
All quits. Move on.
Yeah. So action items from our end, though, to facilitate this, it sounded like there was one that will actually ship the improvements to npm pack list that are just sitting there and should get pulled in, I think, next. But then it sounds like we have another ask here. What's the other action item on our side here, Isaac?
I'm writing them up in chat.
Yeah, the RC for workspace layout for Jordan. Cool. Right. Okay. Yes, that's the other one. So running prepare scripts for linked bundle depths. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I guess I could have put that in the meeting notes directly.
It's all good. Okay. Just wanted to circle back. Matt, do you feel like these three action, specifically the running prepare scripts for linked bundle depths, do you feel like that solves the use case that you proposed here?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I think
no worries. Thanks for joining the call and proposing this. Yeah, we definitely try to take in as many different use cases as possible and try to meet all the needs. Cool. Let's move on then to the last item that we have here. We have about a half hour left. So we can go a little bit longer on this. And I know Jordan has some thoughts. This is the issue 445. This was essentially us announcing npm 8, which we've got queued up to actually release tomorrow. right now, as of right now. And the primary breaking changes for npm 8 are dropping Node 10 support, and just changing essentially our engine's matrix of Node versions we support. Also updating Node.js and a whole bunch of some of our major releases to a whole bunch of depths that are also going to coincide with this change. So just wanted to bring this up because it is sort of this imminent release that we're trying to cut. With that in mind, Jordan, I know you had some initial feedback for this, which was to try to map out what the historical feedback was from folks who were trying to upgrade from 6 to 7, and any kind of regressions that were introduced in 7, mapping those out and ensuring that we had those in mind with the upgrade path, I guess, for npm 8.
Well, and so there's a few things. Upgrading more than one major of anything at a time is a risk, and it's generally something best avoided. So if we tell people to hop directly from 6 to 8, that's not often going to work out well. They may be able to do it, but like it's always better in my experience to move one major at a time. So that's the first thing. So anyone who can't upgrade from 6 to 7 is increasing their risk because even if they're able to upgrade from 6 to 8. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's totally fine to aggressively add major versions, but it becomes a problem for all sorts of things, CVEs and also bug fixes and so on, if backports are not policy. Meaning, to me, the things that go well together are I don't do backports, but I also don't do breaking changes. Or I do breaking changes whenever needed, but I also do backports whenever reasonable. And it sounds like NPM is intending, unlike what they did from 6 to 7, intending to have a different policy for 7 to 8. So from 6 to 7, 6 and 7 were both maintained for a long time, and it was a decision that was weighed for a while, I'm assuming, and made very cautiously. And I think that was a correct amount of weight to put on it, to like start closing all those issues as saying like we don't support npm 6 anymore. Like it was a good thing. I appreciate that 7 and 8 are mostly identical, but like it still seems like a good thing for 8 to come out and 7 to still be supported for a little while. If there's anyone still on Node 10, it's not because they're lazy. It's because like it's hard for them to upgrade beyond Node 10 for some reason. Probably, my guess just right now, it would probably be things like compiled dependencies that also don't work above Node 10, things like that. So I see no problem with cutting npm 8 like immediately, without npm 7 getting all those bug fixes, if those bug fixes can eventually land in npm 7 and 8, right? Like I think that's fine. That would be no big deal. But if npm 8 launches now, then that's and the policy is basically npm 7 will never get those fixes. I think that's like that was the whole point of bringing this up last week, was I didn't want that exact situation to create. Like I don't. We shouldn't have a situation where the advice is, oh, just skip npm 7 completely.
Yeah. So
we lost the last couple seconds there. I don't know if I was the only one.
I just said like we shouldn't have
you.
a situation where you can skip npm 7 completely. Like, and that's the advice.
Yeah, so I guess we have a couple things to dig in on there. One, the support policy isn't really changing at all. So I've referenced it here. Our support policy still remains the same in that we are going to support the versions of npm that are in stable versions of Node that are currently actively maintained. And so that's why we do actually still ship security updates to npm, but we're not npm 6, but we're not actively maintaining it for other kind of like bug reports, etc. And we're not going to do any feature development. Our hope and essentially the sign off we've got from the Node project is that npm 8 would land in a minor to the current to Node 16. So that's our understanding, is that is the that npm 8 is essentially going to trump the usage and use case for npm7 in any maintained version of Node.
That's Node 16. They're going to backport it to 14 and 12 as well.
So no, so that's why we have to continue to maintain 6. So that's why 7 essentially becomes what is very similar to Node's release cycle as a almost considered, you could consider it experimental. And this actually is, we're trying to move towards, you know, a more aggressive, as you say, a more aggressive Semper Major release timeline that also maps and aligns more closely to the Node projects as well, to, you know, tried to push us to line up closer to their release schedule. Does that kind of give you some insight into like the thinking behind this, and then also how we see it in terms of usage today is only in like we're only being distributed in Node 14 or Node 16.
I see the argument, but I think this is sort of an accident of the fact that at the moment, NPM 7, when NPM 8 is about to come out, NPM 7 is only in Node 16, and the Node project is willing to pull an NPM 8 into 16. And also the changes between 7 and 8 are essentially 0, except for dropping an engine. Is that going to be the case moving forward? Like when 9 comes out, is 8 and 9 going to be identical, except 9 drops an engine? Such that, I mean, like, I guess naturally it would be because of the way versions work, but like, it would be at least that. But like at some point we're going to make breaking changes that are not just dropping an engine. And when NPM does that, then this scenario I think isn't really going to apply. So like, yeah, like breaking config, for example. So it seems like if this is just a special case and not likely to happen again, then like, okay, but like if I don't know. It seems like it seems like a strange choice to make, given that unless those bug fixes to 7 are more difficult when supporting Node 10 than when not. And I haven't seen any evidence of that yet, but.
So I'll let Gar speak here in a second, but I will say just before that is that the support policy again hasn't changed. And the idea that we are supporting multiple versions and maintaining multiple major versions of the NPM CLI is unfortunately like just not, we don't have the, like to backport, continue to backport, let's say fixes and continue to maintain multiple release lines is just not like, we don't have the capacity to do that. And that's never been the support policy since at least I started working on the project, that we were going to maintain multiple major release lines. And we actually made a condition to support 6 recently, and that was a special condition when we decided to ship 7. So the special case we're in today is that we actually are supporting essentially 2 major release lines. And yes, 7 will go away because there will be a net new major that exists that essentially trumps it. But Gar, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah, this is a fundamentally different Semver major than 6 to 7. 6 to 7 was lots of changes. This is the engines update, and the idea is that this is something we're going to be a little better about as Node moves forward. This is something we'll do. What that looks like with Node 18, I don't know. Maybe we'll be able to time it a little better, and to where NPM 9 or 10 or whatever is, you know, as we cut it, you know, it happens shortly after, you know, 18 comes out or something. But yeah, this is, as far as right now, this is a unique situation because if 9 comes out, it's not going to land in Node 16. And so we would have to still support 8 because it's in 16, like we do now as our support policy. The other thing is backports. The whole reason we're doing this is there's a lot of changes we want to make to the API surface area, to kind of some of the core foundation of NPM that will make backporting a little more difficult because the code's not going to even line up anymore. So it's not something we were wanting to plan to do because it is going to be onerous, given the fact that 7's really 8, except for an engines drop. I mean, if you're Node 10, you're going to have to get off that to get into the newest NPM, and it's just kind of going to be the reality of it.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the fact that we do want to shuffle around a bunch of the API, the internal API. That's why we're putting that curtain up to not expose that internal API anymore. That will make backporting outside of the very, very short term, like 801 might have some changes that are relatively trivial to backport to 7 dot whatever, but 8.1 dot whatever probably won't.
Well, I'm sure there are some bugs for which that's true, right? And I like understand the practicality argument there. But I also suspect that there are some other bugs that like could be fixed inside Arborist and will not be impacted by the internal NPM API refactoring. And like, you know, there are probably like I'm if the bugs in that list that were collected have been explored and in fact triaged to the point where the like difficulty of their fix is understood, then, and if none of them are the things I'm thinking of, the easy ones to do now, like they could be done today if somebody had time, right? Then like, great, then there's no problem. But my guess is that the time hasn't been put in the last 6.5 days to fully triage all of those issues and determine in fact that like they will be difficult to do in NPM 7 after 8 is cut. You know what I mean? Like,
if they're bugs for 7, then they're probably bugs for 8, is what I would say.
Right. And but my expectation is that most of those bugs for 8 will be fixable in ways that could be that aren't going to be dramatically affected by NPM's internal API refactoring, and so would be really easy to backport. Like, and it's a fine argument if you're going to say like it's fine to backport them, but we're not going to do it. But like we take a PR. That's a different position.
That's the hit. I think that will.
Okay.
That's kind of like that's what I would say. And
Okay.
the drift already becomes like unmaintainable based on the fact that we've updated all the dependencies, and any of those fixes that would go into those dependencies essentially wouldn't be able to be backported unless we also then backported the fixes into all those in the depth, right? So it becomes like unmanageable at some point to like do that work, which might be a relatively small fix that isn't reliant. You know,
that's part of my thinking here is that the cutting of NPM 8 now before these bugs are fixed is turning what would probably be a number of very small easy fixes into very difficult, painful backports to achieve the same goal.
So it is time. Like when I say small, right? When we say small and we say easy, it is time, and for sure, like there's lots of work to do. We have a very large backlog, so Isaac, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I think that obviously if there is some extenuating circumstance, if it is extremely easy to do and it doesn't impose a huge amount of cost and it makes our users' lives better, like, of course, we're going to do it. If it's a security vulnerability that's affecting somebody that, you know, some major number of users that can't upgrade, like, fine, sure. The real discussion here, and I think we all sort of understand that a line is going to be drawn somewhere. There will be some changes that, yes, like we could fix that in 7. We're not going to ship a new version of 7 just for this fix. And the real question is just kind of where that line is, because doing that work will keep getting more and more and more expensive. And you know, even if there are things that are not affected by the internal shuffling of NPM's API surface, we don't need to explore in this call all the different reasons why that may or may not be feasible. We're just going to deal with it as we go.
Yeah, I guess the top up on that is just we do want to continue to have a more regular cadence of Semper majors, and we do want to be more aggressive with those timelines so that we can improve things more rapidly. And the hope is that we are making breaking changes and updating the version of NPM when it makes sense. This is just one of those cases where this is the only way to update this contract. That we had to update if we want to stick by what we believe is Semper major breaking change, like we had to update NPM, the version of NPM.
For the API, I don't really think so. The API has been explicitly not tied to Semver since like NPM 3, which broke me, and I had to stop relying on it many years ago. So, but like you have to do it for the engine change anyway. I get that.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, well, we don't really have great like tests of that, and it's not well documented, and it kind of moves, and we don't really notice. It's another thing entirely to say, no, require NPM throws now, right? Like one of them you could hand wave and just say, oopsie, I dropped a plate. The other one is like, no,
Fair point.
There's no plates here anymore.
Gar, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, just that we are going to need to mentally make the distinction between the Semver majors of, NPM getting new features and then the Node.js support. I think we should expect those to be sprinkled in and have the same kind of situation there where it's just, this version is just the LTS support. And I think we're going to try and keep those ones granular like this one.
Yeah, if they happen to align, then that's great, right? Like if we happen to be able to preemptively align any major breaking changes at the same time that we want to, line up with Node dropping LTS support for like a previously supported major, then that's great that aligns. But I think you're right that we should also make the distinction of what we're doing here versus net new breaking changes. My expectation is that we probably will keep at least a cadence of Semver major probably breaking change within 12 months, roughly 12 months, but potentially, who knows, it could be more, it could be less, but I feel like that's at least a reasonable kind of like expectation, and gives us some wiggle room to like, plan to have breaking changes within a year of a major cut. And yeah, we've talked internally as well, Jordan, in terms of just like the experimental versions, having like 9, let's say 7 and 9 be examples potentially of having more short-lived life.
I mean, calling those experimental versions and like mirroring Node's like very obscure versioning pattern, that's a major change for NPM support policy, even if it doesn't require changing the wording.
I say experimental,
like conceptual change.
Yeah, conceptual change for sure. And again, that's why I say we also haven't we haven't diverged from the support policy that we've maintained since I've been here. So just continuing to double down on that our support policy was, we don't have an active LTS like
yeah, I'm not trying to rules lawyer here and say you violated some wording of something. It's just kind of in terms of what users may or may not expect, and what difficulties users are likely to run into when trying to upgrade and so on. Like I don't actually care what the support policy is on paper. I'm just talking about the actual effects of actions.
Yeah, so like there will no longer be an NPM 7 version in a actively maintained node distribution once we cut 8 and landed in node 16. So that's that ideally, like, conceptually like maps with what people expect from us. Gary, I still see you have your hand up. Did you want to comment any further? Nope. Okay. Did anybody else have any other feedback or want to say anything else on this topic specifically? If not, I can open up the floor as well for any other discussion topics. If not, then I can give you all 10 minutes of time back today and hopefully chat with you next week. Thanks everybody for jumping on again as usual. Appreciate your time and discussion for sure. And I will see you next week. Cheers.